Good evening, everybody. We are facing the last session of Photos Week of this year. We have had 6 sessions exploring different topics of contemporary architecture as a whole, trying to understand how things are moving and maybe pop up new references and pathways. Today, we'd like to focus on interaction between architecture and ecology. That means relationship, the relation between plants, animals, people, and their environment. A vector that always shaped architecture, though lately, in the modern period, it seems as if mechanical equipment and pure technology had liberated us from this constraint with natural environment. But nature, it's a powerful framework and a stimulating reference for human wonders and imagination. So, to stand in nature, to feel part of it, to learn from nature, to understand the rhythms of its movement, whatever it is. To face nature pushes us to build a cosmovision and also to have the humility to accept some limits. As architects, contemplation is always linked with action. The confidence that it is possible a project for and within nature. Today, we have the evidence that our growing and well-being patterns are associated to a significant loss of biodiversity all along the planet, as well as pollution, lack of resources, etc. This is an indicator, maybe more accurate than simple economical GDP, and it is telling us that our habitat is losing value as a whole. We need a new paradigm, and though we know architecture itself is not the solution, it should be a catalyst and a powerful instrument to bring to reality what society is starting to imagine. Today we have the privilege to have the presentation of Mr. Kengo Kuma and Jordi Viñals at his office, and the interaction of Lorenzo Chelleri. Let me present briefly all of them. Lorenzo Chelleri let me see if I find it. That's it. Lorenzo, it's an Italian planner and environmentalist, PhD, urban geography. He worked in EU Environment Agency. He published more than 50 papers exploring resilient trade-offs, principal investigator of European research projects, founder of chair of International Network for Urban Resilience Research, director of International Master in Urban Resilience for Sustainable Transition at UIC Barcelona. He's consultant of European Governance of Measures and currently involved in the creation of the Urban Climate Change Research Network. Jordi Viñals, it's a Catalan architect from the Polytechnical University in Barcelona, Master Architect Design in Columbia University, Master degree in Architecture in TU Technical University Berlin, and since 2011 works at Kengo Kuma Associates, currently as Chief Project Manager in its office in Paris, and has been involved in several research projects, teaching, and so on. And Mr. Kengo Kuma was born in 1954 in Yokohama, Japan. He's a prolific author and professor emeritus at the University of Tokyo. He founded Kengo Kuma Associates in 1990 in Tokyo. Kengo Kuma proposes architecture that opens new relationships between nature, technology, and human beings, conducting research simultaneously at the macro and micro scales. The material and intangible heritage of crafts are integrated into the design, manufacturing, and construction processes. Combining Japanese tradition with contemporary technologies, Kengo Kuma challenges tradition in his quest for the relation of human to nature. So, Mr. Kengo Kuma, the stage is yours.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having asked for your lecture series. And today, I want to talk about nature as relationship. I want to start from the project in Barcelona. It's just about 3 years. So we did design the small stairs and the additional atrium. Through this project, I learned many things from Gaudi. The Gaudi, he was very much interested in natural phenomena. For him, nature is not the shape. The nature is, people sometimes misunderstood the Gaudi. The Gaudi created unique shape, but if we look carefully, his interest is gradations and the particles, and as a phenomenal, and nature is the symbolic space of this building, and the symbolic as ideas is gradation, and these atriums, you can find the fading effect of natural light, and as assembly of small articles. And in this case, the particles were made by the square ceramic tiles, but the colors is fading to create a special phenomena of natural light. So, what we did for this building is learning from him. The small particles, in this case, we did use a small aluminum as a chains, and as the colors of aluminum chains has some gradation, and by using that kind of small particles, we try to create a phenomena of natural light, and there's a kind of sense of natural light. And in the period of Gaudi, he should use the heavy wool, but now in our period, we can work with this kind of bright and transparent material. And by using this kind of light, the particles, so we can show the gradations and transparency and the layers of space. And the layer is very important idea in natures, because in natures, the area of living is not totally separated. The area for each life is connected, but not 100% connected. The layers is creating the system of their lives, and we try to apply this kind of layers to architecture design. And that kind of approach, for me, started from this project. Is this Hiroshige Museum was completed year 2000, and this is one of the masterpiece of Hiroshige. This was in 1857. And this is a wooden block gave a big influence on Impressionism. And as a Impressionism as a painting, also came from the observation on nature, and what Hiroshige did in this wood block is layering of natural phenomena. And first layers is vertical lines, which represent rain, and second layers is wooden bridge, and the wooden bridge is also transparent, and the knot is blocking the view. And the third layers is river, and fourth layers is forest behind the river. And that kind of multi-layers is showing the system of our life. The spaces of us is not separated, all connected, but there's with some control, with some privacy, and this is a secret of our life. And this is another example of Hiroshige's wood block, the layering, and there's a first layer is again is a vertical lines, the lines with lines, and the forest behind the people has the 4 layers, and is in the one forest. And as he is emphasizing the depths in the forest by the gradation of the colors. And as a very famous painter, as an impressionism painter, as Vincent van Gogh, really learned many things from Hiroshige. And he made this copy of Hiroshige. And after 30 years, Hiroshige did the wood block. And in 19th century, the 30 years was not long. Amazingly, the Japan and Europe was very, very far that period. But Vincent van Gogh found something new from Hiroshige, and he did this as a copy, following his as a method. And another great artist is in 19th century is the Frank Lloyd Wright. He also learned many things from Hiroshige. This lobby house by Frank Lloyd Wright is a good example of learning from Hiroshige. The super juxtaposition, layering, the merging into the environment, the relationship with nature, that kind of approach all came from Hiroshige, I think. And this is my Hiroshige Museum, as a museum for Hiroshige. And as we try to apply the same method as on the contemporary architecture design. As the difference from the period of Gaudi is the material and the transparency of the material. So what we used for this Hiroshige Museum is wooden louvers, and from the mountain behind, and we try to show the relationship between the mountain behind the village. This is a diagram is showing the relationship. The Hiroshige Museum is the red squares, and in the center, there is the passage to the mountain from the center of the village. And in Japanese villages and towns, we had the mountain behind the village. The village, that means village was not in the mountain, was not away from the mountain. So village was sitting beside the mountain, so because their life could not exist without the natural resources of the mountain. And as a material came, all the materials that they needed for life came from the mountain. And energy came from the mountain. We didn't have the electric company as before 19th century, and we didn't have oil and gas before 19th century. The energy for living should come from the mountain behind. And then that kind of important mountain was called village mountain. So in Japanese, we called it Satoyama. And they treat the mountain very carefully, because if they lost the mountain, they will not survive anymore. And they always built shrine besides at the edge of the mountain. As you see the shrines, it's the gray squares, and the shrine is a kind of message to the next generation. If we cut all trees, so we cannot survive anymore. So it's a very strong and a critical message to the next generation. It is a system of Japanese life, and as a village is totally connected with mountain, and their daily life is totally supported by the natural resources of the mountain. And then the relationship is most important, and sustainable system is most important, and the shrine is a symbol of that kind of sustainability. But in 20th century, we all have forgotten that kind of system. And the shrine was abandoned, and the village mountain, Satoyama, was abandoned, and the mountain behind the forest and village was totally divided. This is a kind of tragedy for our life. And what is a Hiroshige Museum, the aim is reconnect the mountain and the village again, and then we designed the passage to the mountains, and the approach to the museum is from behind the building. not from the parking in front. So after passing the building, after crossing the hall, people can find the abandoned shrine and abandoned Satoyama, and after that experience, finally people can enter the building, and through this experience, the people can recover. The connection is most important, and without the connection with nature, we can survive. This is a big finding of this approach. And also material-wise, we try to connect the mountain and the building again. It is totally different approach from 20th century. 20th century, the materials for the building all came from outside the village. The concrete, steel, every material came from outside, and sometimes from other countries. The cheapest material was best materials. This is a rule of 20th century. That for this the building, most of the materials came from the mountain behind. The wood came from the mountain behind, and the other material, for example, the stone also came from the quarry of the mountain behind, and the white papers we did use came from the special the tree of the mountain behind, and the local craftsman was working for this the paper making, and most of the materials came from the local mountain, and the local craftsmanship worked for connecting the mountain and building. And this was the typical Japanese systems before 19th century. But in 20th century, after the American civilization came to Japan, so that connection, that relationship was totally forgotten. And in China, so we try to apply this as a recoupling of relationship as in this Great Wall project. The location is very close from Great Wall. The 300 meters from Great Wall, you see Great Wall behind the building. And as the buildings was merging into the topography. We didn't cut the topography, so we didn't cut the land. And the bottom of the building is following the topography of the place. And material-wise, we did use local bamboo. It's not expensive materials, and but the bamboo can be the best material to create the screen. And the bamboo screen is connecting the spaces, and as a controlling the privacy, as a controlling the field of life. And this is tea house, as we call it. Tea house is sitting in the center of the house. And the drinking tea has a special meaning in Asia. Through the drinking tea experience, the people can recover the relationship with nature and life. And as tea has a tea leaf is picking up in the forest, and the tea ceremony has a special meaning in Asia, especially in Japan. And this is an experimental project in Italy. As we worked with Japanese carpenters and Japanese students, as we got a hint from this the toy, the Chidori toy. It is a typical joinery of Japanese traditional building. the three types of joint assembled together, and the twist and finish. And as the Japanese carpenter provided us this kind of the bar, small the bars, and as on the side, my student assembled together to create this small pavilion. And without any nail, without any metal, they assembled it. And as after this project, we tried to bring this idea to the bigger project. In the Tokyo University, as a professor, Sato checks the strongness of this joinery system. And is it is a section of the museum. And sections of this, the size of this bars is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters. Is very, very the tiny thing. And as we try to create the transparency and the relationship between exterior and interior, connected but still, so we can have some privacy and as a sense of safety and sense of privacy is important for the life. The look up the ceiling. And as we apply this system for the wooden bridge, as before 19th century, so we had many wooden bridges. So this is available any places in Japan because Japan's percentage of the forests in Japan is still 70%. So it is very high as a ratio, so compared with other the countries. And we try to going back to the old as a method of bridge. And again, as a small particles and assemblies and the creating relationship. And the wooden bridges often have the roof to protect the wood from rains. And so we decided to use the interior as a covered space for the museum, exhibition space. And as in the same Yasuhara village, so we also found this beautiful the hut. As people were using this as a space as a cafe as in before 19th century, and the thatch was very, very important material for building because thatch was also coming from mountain behind, and the circulation of natural resources was important for the village economy of the village. And also the ecodiversity, and to have the field for thatch as such field is very necessary. And as animals can find a space for living in such field, and then the ecodiversity was possible because of thatch. But now the thatch field disappeared, and I think it's very, very pity for the forest. And so we worked with one craftsman to find a new way of using thatch. So this is a thatch facade. And for installation, such is very appropriate material. Can control humidity, and they can create a very mild climate in the building. This is a small hotel that the people are selling as a vegetable from the village, and it's just as a new type of the hotel. And also for the same Yuzuhara as a village, we designed a library, so with this kind of structural system. So again, the small particles, transparency, and the connection with the environment is the theme of this design. And the people are enjoying this space is because as a good thing for this space is as people take off the shoes in the library. And even the small kids they can enjoy the space with this kind of floor. And the space is very similar to the space in the forest. And natural light is very similar in the natural light in the forest. And reading the book in the forest can give the special memory to them. It's a journaling, so good. And in state, we did design as a Portland Japanese gardens with this as a cultural complex. Again, as a building and the forest behind are connected by the vegetation on the roof, and the life in the forest is merging into the building, and the life and artifact are not separated, it's connected. And the building is not enclosed, every door, every window is openable, and outside and the interior is totally connected, like this. And so we did use the local materials as possible as can, wood from Portland, Oregon, and the transparency and the connection. And in Scotland, this is a little bit different approach. So we try to connect the water and land. Close from the site, we found this beautiful sea cliff, and as we try to bring this relationship into the building, we push the building into the river and like this, and to create a new relationship between land and river. And for this, we didn't use wood because the condition is not the mild, and the facades, some like the sea cliff, will gives a new impression for the building. It is not artificial particle wall. The porous wall is to create the new the soft relationship between environment and the building. And in the center of the building, so we cut to create a whole. Is a similar approach with the Hiroshima Museum. The Hiroshima Museum, we cut the building and to connect the village and the mountain. And in the Scotland, we cut the building to create new relationship between the city and river in front. And so this space looks like a natural cave, and some give some sense of privacy to the people, because humanity was living in the cave for long years, and is connected with our memory in the cave. So protected, and but at the same time, it keeps the special privacy and the mild climate. And in the building, we did use local wood to create another type of cave. Avoid vertical wall is the same approach, and people call this building a living room for the city. As they came to the opening, and as in them, as example of Denmark is the Christian Andersen Museum. It is a rendering for the building. It is in the city called Odense. This is not a big city, and as most of the building are the low silhouette. We tried to merge the museum into this low silhouette building, and finally, our solution is museum as garden. The height of the museum is lower than the neighboring buildings, and the wooden structures, and there's a wood outside margin. And there's a Christian Andersen is famous fairy tale, as a fairy tales authors, and each fairy tales is connected with gardens, and the kids can enjoy the secret feeling of each gardens. And green is again the best way to create the space. Instead of wall, so we did use green for making the story and for making the special experience for kids. And as besides those bigger projects, as we did the small pavilion project. The Jubaku project is the wooden trailer house. The trailer house was the invention of America in 20th century, as it came from the industrial era, and the steel frame and the aluminum cladding it is a typical the style of the trailer house, but instead, so we did use natural material. And as a natural material can give a totally different atmosphere for the box. So it's an openable box, and to create new relationship with the environment by the sliding and the hinge door. And again, the relationship is most important for our life. And it is in the center of Tokyo. so we moved this as a trailer house to the small as a vacant space to open the temporary restaurants in the box. So we want to propose as a new nomadic lifestyle in the city. The size-wise is not big, 2.4 meters by 6 meters. As we can have the 10 seat for the restaurants. And after the 6 months, these restaurants moved from Tokyo to Hokkaido, a totally different climate. And it was used for the bar in the snowfield. And after that, these restaurants, this bubble restaurant moved from Hokkaido to Okayama, so further south, and another function they have. And in Hokkaido, so we learned many things from this house by Ainu. And the Ainu is one ethnic group in Hokkaido. They had their own culture and lifestyle, and there's this house. And this house was totally covered by the soft material, and is giving the warmness to interior. So we applied that kind of softness to this experimental house. And as the exterior wall and exterior roof is made by the membrane, and as interior is also wrapped by the membrane. And the wooden frame is between the two membranes. And this is showing the section of this membrane house. Between the two membranes, so we have the air circulation system, and also for the floors, we have the special irori. Irori means as a fire. And as the wisdom of Ainu people, the ethnic peoples, is warming up the earth the period of the year. Even in summer, they heated up the ground, and it is a kind of the ecosystem. And in winter, the heat as a storage, can warm up the space, more functionally and more efficient as efficiently. And as we learned that system, and we apply that system for this experimental house. And without insulation, so this as a system can warm up the space, as even in the -30 degrees, as people can enjoy the warmness and softness together in this house, like this. And in this as a Hokkaido, as the area, as a Tokyo University, I still teaching in Tokyo University, working with the other universities to create experimental houses. This is the experimental buildings by Tokyo University, is a collaboration with other universities. It's a Keio University, so it's Harvard, It has Barclays. This is Dutch academies, and so we actually really enjoy the collaboration with other universities and to find the unique way in the tough climate. And this as a small project is a project for Milano Triennale. It is a small house for disaster. So we did use umbrella. So our idea is if the 15th umbrella assembled together, can be the new house. It's a special umbrella we designed for this disaster house. And as a 15 students work together to assemble those as an umbrella. And another softness, another lightness, and another relationship with environment. But materials, the unit is just the umbrella. The structure-wise, it is a tensegrity structures, so we didn't create frame. So membrane and the very tiny bars are working together. It's a magic of tensegrity. And 15 students after working together to assemble, and they drink together and they sleep together in this as a small pavilion. It's another nomadic lifestyle. This is material. And this is another experimental project for New York MoMA. The title of the exhibition is Home Delivery. It's 2008. So we proposed this idea. It's a water branch. This is a polyethylene tank, water tank. And this is a catalog. And this is a poly tank that we designed for this as a house. This is the process of making the poly tanks. And this poly tank has two valves to create the water flow to the adjacent tanks. And this is connected to the unit can control the temperature of the building, the wall, and the floors, and the ceiling. They're all connected with pipes. And the heated waters and the chilled waters can change the temperature of the place. Our idea, it is a kind of body of life. Our body is always can control by the flow of blood and flow of some other the liquid. But flow is a key word for life. And the flow is related with connectivity with the environment, a relationship with the environment, as our students really enjoy as making this as a experimental pavilion. This is the interior. One single unit can make every necessary furniture. The bathtub and the sofas and the kitchens are all made by one unit. It is similar to our body. The small cells can create anything. And that idea is very different from the biology in 19th century. 19th century is the people thought we the assembly of the organs, the stomach, bones, but now the new biology teaches us that we are the assemblies of small cells, and the flow of liquid that are connecting those cells. It is a new as an idea of the philosophy, a new idea of the biology, and as we try to apply that idea to the building. Yeah, that's the end of my lecture, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would like to have at least at the moment 3 questions.
Yes.
If there are in the audience. So, might have a microphone? Okay.
Hello. I would like to start by saying thank you for your presentation, and it's an honor to have your presence here with us today. Our first question for you is, with the increasing focus on sustainability in architecture, how do you see the role of biomimicry evolving in your future projects, and what potential do you see for this approach to address complex environmental challenges?
Yes, the biomimicry is sometimes very helpful to understand the system of nature, but it's also I know the risk of biomimicry. So sometimes biomimicry was misunderstood. Sometimes people think biomimicry is just following the shape of the life, and as a shape is as a result of the system, and the shape is not the beginning of the system. As I want to find the system and the behind the shape, and as our project is always try to go aim that kind of systematic biomimicry. Okay.
Hi, thank you for your response. I wanted to ask, how do you incorporate your architecture into a larger, more broader urban context, and what are your key considerations while doing this?
Yeah, for urban designs, I try to learn from the old city in Japan. The old city in Japan, there's a building were not separated. It's all connected. It's because we didn't have the heavy thick wall. Instead of the separation by thick wall, each building were working as a cell in the big body. After the concrete building came to Japan, so we began to misunderstood. The building is isolated, but the isolation is a kind of fake. And what we should go is to recover the connectivity and recover the continuities of each species. And it is not easy because the building code of our period was based on the idea of separation. But we can design some areas, some bigger areas, so we can apply this kind of idea to each buildings.
Thank you for your response. And our last question would be for you. In your philosophy, you often emphasize the concept of betweenness when integrating nature into your designs. So my question would be for you, how do you manage to integrate this philosophy into your concepts when creating intermediate spaces within your buildings, enhancing both nature and human experiences?
Yeah, and for our design, the small gap, the small void space is always most important. And if we can propose some as ambiguous relationship between the spaces. The small gap plays an important role than the bigger space. The bigger space is of course as a main space for living. That is small gap between the bigger space it can be called intermediate space. Can control the relationship. So how can design the relationship is most important for our design. It is more important than the design than the main space. It's more important than the facade of the building. And this kind of small gap is called the Ma space in Japan. The Ma means small gap, and in every art field, the idea of Ma is most important. In music, the space between the sound is most important, and sometimes it means a quietness. That is, a quietness is basically more important than the big sound. Okay.
Mr. Kengo Kuma, I would like to ask you, we have seen you have a global practice, so you're a big office, multinational, but then we have seen that your projects are very concerned into local, very specific. So this distance, do you think being global practice towards a local project has some sort of advantage to do so, or it's a difficulty for you to concern these two sides of this global and local? How do you manage?
Yes, to design something in the different condition is most important to learn something from the new place. And the cultural exchange is always a mother of new finding. Today I started from the example of the Vincent van Gogh and the Frank Lloyd Wright. the cultural exchange between them and Japan is a source of their invention. And as I don't want to stay in just one place. So I want to learn from the new place, and as always as a matter of my creation. And I also want to show one example. As a youth, maybe as most of you think, the tea house, small tea house is Japanese invention. But the recently is a finding from history is tea house got a hint from the ship from Europe. The ship from Europe has a small spaces inside. The ship from Spain and Portuguese to Japan in the 16th century. The Japanese, the shogun, saw the small spaces in the ships, and they brought that idea to a tea house. And also the drinking tea method they got a hint from the drinking wine experience in the Christian mass. And it is not that they don't have evidence, but some the professors the finding the relationship between the Christian mass and the Japanese tea ceremony. And the Japanese tea ceremony was hint from the mass of Christian. It's a very interesting cultural exchange. As always, new place can give the new hint.
Thank you very much. We'd like to to get to the stage, Mr. Jordi Viñals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So I would like to go to the stage. Hey, Jordi. Busy? Okay, Jordi, so can go. Thank you very much. And you can finish and complement. Sí, está aquí.
Well, hello to everyone. Thank you very much for being here. First of all, I would like to thank you, the university, for inviting us to this lecture. We are honored to present our work here. Actually, in my personal case, being from Barcelona, to me, it's very satisfying to come here and explain our work. And secondly, I would like also to thank the students for being here, because I know you guys just finished the exams, but I have heard about it, and you have a long weekend of freedom in front of you. So the fact that you are here and without getting asleep, to me, it's already fantastic. So, you know, after the presentation of Kuma-san, I would like to just make a focus on what we actually do in Paris office. So just to understand the way we work, it's important also to talk about how we are organizing this global work. And you know, we are, as you all know, we are based in Tokyo, where the headquarters are. But actually, Kengo Kuma office also has these satellites, right? So Paris office was created in 2008. Later on, Beijing office was created in 2010, and later followed Shanghai. And this year we opened a tiny office in Korea for the Korean project. So actually, this allows us to really have a global presence with projects all around the world, as you can see here. And let me share with you the photo of our small atelier in Paris. I had before a photo with sun because we put some tables outside and it's very charming. We are a kind of a small family. But in order to make justice of the weather that we have in Paris, that it's mostly gray, I wanted to be honest with you. So this is what happens most of the days of the year. But it's actually a very nice space. And we are a group of international people. And following Kuma-san's thread about international exchange, the interest of working with other people from all around the world, this is really casting some new ideas, and we have people from all around the world, which really is an exciting opportunity of collaboration. And as design philosophy, just to briefly introduce you this, we are based on context. That means that natural phenomena for us are key to produce an architecture derived from the local, from what we have around us. And this can be understood in many ways. For us, I think that the most efficient way to deal with this locality is always paying a strong attention to crafts, because crafts somehow have distilled the knowledge of time. And by using crafts, local crafts in every context, we are somehow making use of this wisdom and actually reactivating the local economies embedded in these crafts. We, at the very first beginning, were thinking about a more general explanation about all the projects that we are dealing from Paris office, mostly European. But by request of the university, we thought it was much more interesting to get focused in just one single project. So just let me show you the latest project that we are trying to deliver. This is Saint-Pleyel station. It's in Paris. This is the station that will be delivered for the Olympic Games next June. And we invite you to come to Paris if you can, because this will be a great opportunity to see one of the milestones that we are trying to open in. But today the focus is on a project that we selected for this conference, that is the Museum of Albert Kahn. Why we chose this project between all the other options that we had in Copenhagen or Scotland or Norway? It's because we wanted to really trace this relation between Japan and Paris, and how we are trying to apply some Japanese concepts into European architecture. And here we are. This is Paris, and as you can see, let me see how it works. Yeah, this is Paris, center of Paris. And the location is actually in, in Boulogne-Billancourt, which is not Paris, but it's really next by. So actually you can get there by metro. And the site is in the vicinity of the river, of the Seine, with a plot of almost 4 hectares, right? So, oh, wait a moment. Yeah. So let me briefly introduce you the story of this project, because I think the fascinating part of this project is this person, Albert Kahn, that was a very mysterious character in the history of France, which he was actually a man that made fortune very, very young. Like in his 30s, he was already super rich. So what was special from this guy is not that he was rich, because this makes no one special. It's the fact that he was using all this fortune for a crazy mission. You know, his crazy mission was he wanted to capture the world in photos. So he sent all around the world let's say, a group of global trotters, a group of photographers, in order to take photos of the whole planet, you know. So he was just financing all these expeditions and just asking to them, guys, I just want to ask you one thing, keep your eyes wide open, right? So if I pass by, he was traveling as well on his own. He did his initial trip all around the world, but later, at the beginning of the 19th century, he started to send all these photographers all around the world with a new technique of photography that was called the autochrome. This is a French invention of the Frères Lumière, which was invented in 1903. And the important thing is that this was, we are here facing the first photographs in color. You know, it's a new technique with using the fibers of the potato. So actually, during almost 30 years, these photographers were turning all around the planet and making a huge collection of photos of all around the world in so many places. Like, look at this photo from 1913 in Mongolia. And actually, this created one of the most amazing collections of photographies in the world, that is Les Archives de la Planète, which is actually holding like 72,000 autochromes, which is huge, plus some filming records that are also preserved. So this is one of the treasures that this museum wanted to exhibit, right? And the second treasure, the second important and amazing point is that this same Albert Kahn, he wanted to reflect his dream in a garden. He was a person that believed intensively in the fact that by photographing all the world, cultures would know each other much better and therefore would live in peace. So he was a dreamer, he was an activist, he was a pacifist. And in his garden, he wanted to reflect all this collection of gardens that you can see in the screen. We have from the Japanese garden, French garden, English garden, La Forêt Vosgienne, which is this place here where he came from, because he came from East French in Alsace. And, you know, each of these gardens was designed in his property, which was huge. It's the property that I showed you before at the beginning. But I want to stop in this photograph, in this autochrome, that it's also a photograph taken by the team of Albert Kahn in 1910. This is not Japan, this is Paris. And Albert Kahn took, at this moment, carpenters from Japan, brought them to Paris in order to build this. So we are facing one of these global exchanges already by a man in the beginning of the 19th century. The story is amazing. And actually, what it's a pity is that this guy, after the crack of the 29, he got totally ruined. And he ended up without any money. But of course, the legacy is here. And what we can see now is these gardens that now are part of the state. And this is the plan of the garden that we are now finding when we visit the museum. And as you can see, we are facing a garden museum, because one of the wheels that the client wanted here was that part of the collection was not only exhibited in the new museum, but also spread all around the garden. So actually, our intervention here consisted of a creation of a new building, that's the circle in blue, but as important as this extension was also the renovation of restoration of the old museum here, and also all the renovation of all the small pavilions that we have all around the park. So, well, we did the competition of this, very inspired also by this Japanese garden that we had just next by. And, you know, the government had already demolished part of the housing that was before this area to build a new museum. So our first idea was to enclose the garden. Let's say we found that the garden was such a treasure that we actually wanted to surround it, to enclose it, to keep this secrecy that it had. And actually, by recreating the perimetral boundary that was around. So what we did, and it's good to start with details because the point of this presentation is also to get a bit more into detail is one specific project, was we chose metal, a kind of a very protective skin, because the idea was to isolate this project from the civilization, from the city, and we chose anodized aluminum because we liked how light was reflecting on it with a kind of softness. And we had discussions with the companies on the finish of these metal plates. And contrary to what they expected, we didn't want any perfect finish. We were trying to make the company do mistakes in the chain of production so that we find some scratches all around the mock-ups. And as you can see, we have this kind of traces of the extrusion process that we wanted to keep as part of the language and of the roughness of this metal facade. So we are also very interested in taking this kind of industrial process and trying to make evidence of the process of production of these pieces. And of course, it's a museum of photography, so we were asked very intensively about controlling the light. So one of the main or most important points was how to provide a scheme that protects from direct sun from south and from east, and how we could filter light. So as you can see, here we have these louvers that get twisted, and they allow the light to enter in a very subtle way inside of the museum. And let me pass, yeah. And this is how, if you go now to Bologna, how it looks like. So we have this kind of feeling of wall. It's even a bit aggressive somehow, but the idea was to really separate the boundary of civilization and garden. And now is when the things come in and get interesting, because Japanese tradition has always worked with a task that has been repeated over centuries, that is enclosing a garden and later creating a threshold. The idea of a threshold in Japanese tradition is key. Like if you ever visit Japan, you will see that whenever you access a garden, building, the way you access is super thought. It's something that the Chinese tradition arrived over Japan that imposed some symmetrical models, palaces, etc. But actually, Japan people never really absorbed this symmetry, absorbed this symmetrical design. They always worked in an asymmetrical way, and this is related somehow to even, if you think about the ancestor religion that they had, the Shinto religion, they believed that the spirits, if you gave them a straight line, they would enter. So they were trying to generate other lines in order to avoid it. There is this kind of primitive beliefs that are very interesting, but actually, even when you go to a tea house that Kuma was talking about, it's not only the tea house, but the access to the tea house, what it's called the roji, that's the path leading to the tea house. It's always an experience in itself. So the first idea then was to not only create this boundary, but then how to access, right? And then we were just folding the facade and creating this moment, right? This moment that it's the passage, would be the translation of it, that it's how the facade is folded in a way that people penetrates the building through this tunnel. And this tunnel, if you ever go there, believe me, you start forgetting the noise of the city, forgetting the noise of the cars. You are preparing your mind for the discovery of a new realm. That's the garden, right? So, yeah. So this is the moment of the folding, the passage. Maybe not the most conventional way to access a museum, but actually we wanted to create these sequences of access that was leading to a first courtyard that it's placed here. It's actually an open lobby, because from there we can distribute program, but this diagonal that was one of the key features of the proposal was this obliqueness, this oblique access that suddenly was discovering you this tiny space here and also giving you a first hint of the garden just across. And we had to respond to all French regulations, of course, about accessibility when you do a folding, handicap, visibility of the handicapped people that have problems with visual problems. So we were working with the concrete, again, an industrial product, an industrial material, but trying to craft it, trying to make it somehow a material that could also turn back to a less industrial way of putting it. So what we did was, as you can see here, we provide a tool that we sent from Japan in order to create these ondulations that were reminding the Zen gardens, in order to respond to French regulations about the accessibility of this part. And we learned with the company how to use this in such big pieces. They were passing this even like the monks in the Zen gardens that were passing I don't know this word in English, but this tool that they use to decorate the Zen garden. So the same thing, but done in concrete. And once you arrive to the lobby, you have this distribution about the different programs at the beginning. This is the access to the old museum that we renovated, the access to the restaurant, the access to the library, and then we also have a restaurant on top, and the access of the main museum. So, but we will talk about this later. Let's see that this is the moment of the entrance, but let me introduce you to this second main concept of this project, that is the Engawa. So we have seen this very enclosed facade facing the city, but what was the relation towards the garden that we wanted to propose, right? Because this was the key feature of the building. So in Japan, there is a particular space called Engawa. Engawa, this is a term that doesn't exist in Chinese language. It's a Japanese term. I say this because a lot of elements of the Japanese culture are absorbed from China and Korea with arrival, or even the Buddhism arrived through them. But Engawa was something very particular of the Japanese home. And if you put Engawa in Google, you will find a bunch of translations. I just noted some of them: veranda, balcony, corridor, platform, circulation, buffer zone, transition space, fluid space, contemplation device. And what is interesting of this is that once you have this semantic plurality, means that this space is actually something that it's very ambiguous, and it's something that we really wanted to try to find. You know, these moments where you are not inside, not outside, is a space of circulation, a space of at the same time of contemplation of the garden. So this is actually a device of the Japanese architecture that it's very complex and very rich. And this is a photo of Albert Kahn, again in the garden, and we got an example of Engawa just in front of us. And of course, this Engawa is also, you can find them, for example, this is a famous house that you should visit in Kanazawa if you never visit Japan. You find here this space. We don't know if we are in between, if we are outside. This is this very particular device that surrounds all the Japanese house. It's really connecting also all the spaces. There is no corridors inside. People walk through all this exterior platform to provide this access to the different spaces. So we used this device for all the connections of the different pavilions with the garden. I will enter a bit more in detail in this one here. And as we can see, in the main building, we are using this device in the facade facing to the garden, creating a multi-story Engawa at different levels. And we can see here how we implement this concept, and quite straightforwardly, this is the space that I am talking about. This in-between situation, in between the garden and the building. And as you can see, we have this moment where, depending on the moments, the lights, you feel more connected to the inside, more connected to the outside. The screens here open and close the views. But even, let me talk a bit more about this, because there is this element that comes with Engawa in the Japanese tradition that it's called the sudare. And the sudare, if you ever visit Japan, a city, traditional city like Tokyo, like Kyoto, for example, you will find this kind of stores everywhere. These are very thin bamboo slits of hanged from every house. So it's very typical, a very typical device. And what I think that it's important is that this is not only a sunscreen protection, it is. It's not only a way to filter light, it is as well. But most importantly, it's a device to create uncertainty, to divide a space, but by its ambiguity at the same time connected. So what we were very interested on was in this kind of views that were crossing, you know, these sudares, traditional sudares, and creating also this kind of effect that we, in Japanese, Kuma-san always talks about komorebi. That's the way of the light gets filtered under the leaves of a forest, and creating a very soft light, very gentle, very, very nice. And how we did this, how we implement this concept, because we don't want to have a nostalgic view on architecture. We are contemporary architects, so how we implement these concepts into contemporary architecture. It's not by mimicking them, it's by reinterpreting them. And here we are with this north facet where we created a sudare at 3 levels that was creating this kind of screens that were opening up towards some views, closing them, creating a mystery in between garden and building. And as you can see here, we implemented a color code for every wooden louver. And why? Because we come back to the idea that Kuma-san said about the particles. If you remember what Kuma-san said at the beginning, the importance in our design about selecting one particle, selecting one piece that is at human scale and multiplying it to generate and cover huge surfaces. And this is a design methodology that we use a lot. So let's say, for example, in this case, we selected one single shape and with 2 materialities. We did one with this anodized aluminum and another in wood. And we just set different positions of it. You know, we have a total of 3 possible positions of these 2 material profiles, which creates a bunch of possibilities. You know, so this gives us a feeling of vibration, a feeling of you know, of merging the building with the surrounding. And as you can see, it has also a very attractive effect in the night because the light is reflected very differently depending on the piece that we are creating. So these color codes were given to the company in order that they position every single piece at the precise location with the precise inclination. And here we go to the overall image of the building. So I think that for us it was a real concern how to deal with this facet because the place was so magic that when the client wanted such a big building in front of this amazing garden, we were even scared about what could become the result. So for us, the idea of disintegrating architecture into smaller pieces, making the building disappear somehow in the shadows and with display of depth was one of our main goals. And let me also introduce you. This is the Ngawa that we're talking about, and we also see that we are start having the physical connection with the garden. And if we come back to the photo that I showed you previously on Albert Kahn Museum, we have here what it's called the Kutsunugi Ishi, which is the stones where the Japanese people remove the shoes before entering any Japanese house. So we were also trying to connect the garden and the Ngawa using the same device of the traditional Japanese architecture in 3 points. So we can see here the 3, let's say, stepping stones going down till the garden because we had a difference of level. And even we did one of these as a ramp for handicapped people. And in this connection, what we did was we designed together with landscape designer Michel de Vigne actually the shape of these stones, and we cut them very roughly. We brought them inside. This is granite stones, and it was a very funny process because the stones were huge. We brought them on site, and again, once they were on site, you can see the companies trying to work on them with the chisel, even trying to give this kind of roughness as if the stones had always been there. So the result is these connection stones that connect the Ngawa with the garden through these passages in the middle of the garden. And now let's come to the interior because you know, this language of the Sudare also has a dialogue with the ceiling that we have inside. And as you can see, we also follow this language of stripes in the ceiling of the museum because somehow this ceiling gets merged with the Sudare when we are looking at this building from the garden. And we were using this wooden ceiling to cover all the roofs of the interior spaces. And the way the museum works is always a big atrium here that connects all the levels, as you can see here. And then, let's say, a parcours, a promenade along the central core to discover all the exhibition space where the autochromes and the photographs are exhibited. So this display of the wooden roof, it's this kind of folding of the roof that we folded is like a paper, like an origami, and we also tried to provide some points of entrance of light, always trying to control the amount of light being inside in order to not disturb the museography. So we can see here the actual museography that it's inside of the building, and also when they are dismantling the museography, the soft light that enters through the metallic facade that I showed you at the beginning. So here we are. This photo, it's particularly interesting for us because it starts again merging nature and architecture. And let's continue with the other pavilions, because apart from this extension, we also did the renovation of the rest of the pavilions, which was also a huge task. And in this case, we were facing the building of an architect, Gérard Planes, of the 19th, so not that old building. This was quite recent. The other ones were much older. But here is where the old museum was held. So now the client asked for a full reconversion of the program inside, and they wanted to set here some lecture rooms, some auditoriums, some spaces. So we were fascinated by the roof of this building, because actually we have the garden just climbing on the other side. It's a fantastic section. And then we have the roof going down till the street. So this roof was very inspiring for us. When the machines entered to demolish the interior, we felt like we were in the interior of a boat, something like this. It was very mysterious. So actually we wanted to emphasize this idea, and we also were paying attention to the only exception that this roof had, that was this triangular shape at the center where we placed the central auditorium here. And we designed some louvers, wooden louvers in the ceiling, this time curved, to emphasize this feeling of being inside of a boat. And as you can see the section, this is where we are placing this roof, that it's integrating all the MEP placed behind. And again, how we are always controlling the light being inserted inside. So later we moved to another very special space that was this auditorium, as I was saying before. This was the central position of the roof, where we had this triangular shape with a triangular window at the top. This was this window here. So we wanted to take the opportunity of having this exception in the geometry to work with it. And this was the geometry that actually created the idea of how to generate an auditorium at this position. So as you can see here, we started working with the bamboo, which is a material that we are very familiar with, to create a structure that could create this shape for the auditorium, which, as we couldn't add more weight on the roof, we needed to provide a structure for it. So actually for us, this triangular shape was making sense structurally. And we were creating this kind of spaces with the triangular window and the bamboos going down till the floor. And this is a slide just to show you the typical plans that we submit to the companies, where we get into a lot of precision about the diameter of the bamboos. In this case, we were combining 30, 40, 50 millimeters thickness, and we are also showing the layout pattern of the wood in a very precise way to give this feeling of randomness. And as you can see here, the bamboo had a slit in the middle in order to prevent it from cracking, something that we were using also as part of the design intervention. So this is the outcome of this roof, and the bamboo has been applied here and also found outside in the garden of Albercan that is just nearby. And just not to extend too much my presentation, but let me pass through very quickly to some of the pavilions that we also renovated inside the garden. And for example, this one here, this was the Palmarium. We were looking at the pictures of the past, because the current stage where we found this palmarium was some concrete walls and isolated palmarium in the middle. But we discovered, checking the photos, that we had some structures in the past at the beginning that were also hosting plants. Of course, now the client wanted to host a part of the collection of the photographs outside. So what we did here was to evocate again this curved shape of the greenhouse that was at the beginning, to extend or to reproduce the exact same shape that had in the past. And in this case, we were using metal, following the tradition of iron and glass building of this time when the palmarium was produced. And also in another pavilion, we had to produce an extension due to the accommodation of MEP. And in this case, we were using bricks, which we tried to challenge the material in order to set the bricks not as usually it's done by gravity, but trying to suspend them from some iron bars that were passing by the bricks. And this provided this gradation from top to down, as if the bricks were floating. So I just wanted to pass very fast through this, because as you can see, in just one project, we are dealing with so different materials, trying to understand the past of the different pavilions that we had, and how to reinterpret these materials in a contemporary way in order to produce something that talks again to tradition, but also in a contemporary way. So what was also amazing of this operation was that this was not part of our work, but there was some heritage architects that were dismantling all the pavilions, Japanese pavilions that are still in the garden, piece by piece, and renovating them and rebuilding them again, so which showed that this myth about the Japanese architecture that could be dismantled, rearranged, and assembled again is still happening at this moment. And this was the process where we saw that all the pieces were marked, had certain signs that indicated the exact location, and how all these pavilions were really piece by piece dismantled, renovated, and aggregated again. So it was a pretty exciting way to see it. And just to say that if you never come to Paris, please don't miss the opportunity to visit not our building, but I think that this garden is a very special spot. No matter the season you are coming, it's a beautiful, very beautiful setting. And so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Let me, Lorenzo, because all architects, sometimes we go up, and we are quite obsessed on what we're doing, what we're thinking. So it's good to listen to you and tell us something from outside the discipline, which is very important at the moment. So stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, really. It's Friday evening and it's amazing to see you here. I won't present, I won't give you a speech about what I think you should know or talk about my book, my work, what I'm doing. I guess Felipe already introduced what I'm doing. I'm here to provoke a bit. I'm not an architect, I have no idea about architecture. I would like to maybe zoom out with you from the big names and zoom in for a moment into the thinner and little words of within nature. My contribution, I'm trying to shake a bit you because I have two main points to share. And again, very sorry because I'm missing the point because I'm not an architect, so I cannot feel deep and have your understanding of what's been presented, which is, to me, was art. And I would like to share with you my thoughts on the topic of within nature, respect to what I heard. So there is basically, well, I love your question. What's your name? The third question. Yeah. So Cesara, so when you said, and when you ask about how integrating nature into design, then I see it clear. I say, yeah, that's not within nature to me. So I'm going to share with you this first thoughts and provocation. What I saw was so much inspiring how to bring natural elements into design, and that was amazing. And I'm going to share with you how, to me, that's kind of romanticizing nature, a celebration of nature, which is good. It's kind of mimicking forms. I couldn't hear mimicking nature, understanding nature as processes, natural processes. Where are the ecosystem services? Where are the regulating? Where are all the services that we get from nature? It's been two very interesting keynotes to me about this people-centered approach of getting inspired, by natural elements and bringing them into the design. So my counterpart, maybe now, is for a few moments imagining with you a totally different perspective in which maybe we don't need to bring nature into our design. We need really to reinvent the way we're realigning ourselves as a society, our design, our practices, our building with the nature. And that's why I just put here, I don't have, again, a big presentation about my work, etc. I would just wish to share with you a couple of slides about science and the latest findings we have about nature, and which is our relationship with nature. So, and just to know how many of you, of course, know all the details about the planetary boundaries. Okay, good, my students. Yeah, two of them. That's good. So I won't be boring you for a couple of minutes, but basically, so this is not my job. I would say I'm more a bridger here. I'm building bridges, okay? So I'm bringing here to you something which comes from a very global multidisciplinary team of scientists, right? So in 2009, it was the first time, well, I guess in human history, where scientists from all over the world, 1,000 scientists, could write together and assess in a quantitative way which and how the ecosystem works and which are the limits. So the couple of minutes I have, I would like to reflect with you on this topic. That we already heard about that, but it's about creativity and innovation, right? You're architect, so creativity, innovation, right? It's in your blood, versus the issue of the limits and the perception of the limits. Okay, why I'm telling that? Because I was surprised to read once. No, I was not reading this old philosopher. In a TED talk, there was this woman mentioning a Greek philosopher, which was referring to already 2,000 years ago, the global economic crisis and the ecological crisis, and picturing their world like very degraded resources, with the lands and the fertile soil already completely depleted, and a catastrophic overview. And that was the perception of their time, and was the first time in history 2,000 years ago where humans already pictured the landscape like, wow, completely depleted, and the limits to growth already reached. And as we know, creativity and innovation brought us, right, to explore more limit, and push this limit, and push this limit. So our perception of limits has been always pushed forward, right, into our history. But I'm sharing with you this because this is the first time that the perception of the limits is not human perception, but this is science, this rocket science and data describing which are actually the limits, the thresholds, the tipping points, so the points where beyond that point, the ecosystem is going to collapse and there's no way it's going to recover. So I'm working myself since 15, 20 years on this capacity, which is called resilience. The capacity to absorb disruption, the capacity to recover, the capacity to adapt. No? So our global system and the many, many ecosystems all have embedded resilience, this capacity to recover, right? So it's the first time in history where hundreds, thousands of scientists, through this collaboration led by Johan Brockstrom and colleagues, could describe the relationship between the planetary ecosystems and understand the linkages, understand their tipping points, and picture through this wonderful image in 2009 how we should take care about climate change, novel entities. It's not like aliens, that's not, of course, natural materials, so plastics and pollution, right? And all the ozone layer, etc., etc. No? They divided these 9 huge domains of the planetary ecosystems. And as you can see, they start putting together evidences, worldwide modeling. They put together this analysis, try to measure how we were pushing this ecosystem functioning toward a point where the ecosystem will be so damaged that there won't be point of return and recovery. So, and that point is called limit, threshold. And I've been hearing already the concept of threshold in architecture and the design. So this is the concept of threshold, ecologically speaking, at global scale. Okay, I'm trying to the next. So this is Johan explaining the planetary boundaries framework has been published in 2009 in Nature, and then every 5 years there is an update. So now there has been the 10 years of ecosystem, the planetary boundary anniversary, and there is actually a lot of, it's been disseminated through, there is even a wonderful Netflix series if you want to see, Netflix original, there is a wonderful documentary where Johan is going to explore and navigate with you all the ecosystem boundaries and why, explaining the mechanism, etc. But these are just a few examples, as you can see, planetary example, of which are the macro ecosystem, Antarctic, current, and as you can see, they're all sprawled around the world and they're all independent and all are almost bridging a point of no return. That's the limit we shouldn't pass through our pollution and development, right? So these are the three assessment reports. The first one published, we weren't even able to measure the ninth boundary. And then as you can see in the update in 2015 and in update 2023, now already 9 boundaries are all assessed. There are all the data I'm not going to enter now, but this is just to set the stage why we should be conscious that we are kind of in a Titanic. We're almost there with the water entering in the big ship, and we're not sure whether there will be point of no return, we will be able to kick this water out. And we're celebrating sometimes nature, celebrating what can we value of what we have, the locality. But the truth is that, as you can see, 6 boundaries has already been crossed. In the sense, there are already 6 macro systems globally that has been already past this threshold. So we're entering into a planetary status, climatic status, environmental status. You know, we are actually in the 6th global mass extinction, right? In terms of species, etc. So this could be the beginning of a new glacial era, and this is why it's already 20 years that scientifically has been proven that we are entering in a new geological era, the Anthropocene, right? Where the humans, our economy and our society are actually shaping the natural process globally, right? It's not that we live within nature. Now it's the nature which is living within us. And it's the first time ever in the history of our planet, right? And I'm not entering more and more into the detail of that, but I just wish to picture, to me, which is the state of what should be understood as nature. And I think that there is really, really little understanding of nature and the natural processes and how this can be integrated into spatial planning, in my case, regional planning, into economy. There has been one thing in Kengo presentation that was really interesting about this local dimension that you, Felipe, called and emphasized, which is understanding the locality and working on the local materials, local capacity, which is amazing. And that recalled me to discuss with you the concept of decoupling, you know, because already 50 years ago, we lost this local embedded way of doing things. With the globalization, we already lost with the rise of global cities. Like when Saskia Sassen in 1991, right, was for the first time introducing the concept of global city, which is a city which is in any way GDP related to what you have on your territory. So the GDP, the growth economy of the global city is a city which is for the first time, the GDP is entirely related on global scale markets, not dependent on your resources, not dependent on nature, right? But depending on trade. So that was already the first clear decoupling, you know, from the society and the environment and the nature. Like by speculating on nature, by using the nature through the markets, we as a society were able to actually build cities in a decoupled way from nature. And after 50 years of development, you know where we landed, right? In the 90s with the concept of sustainability, with the concept of resource efficiency, all these concepts that failed because started to claim that we need to carefully extract, to carefully speculate, to carefully use our resources. And we of course didn't listen. So this paradigm of sustainability based on how much we use the resources and try to use less, right? It's no longer working. Because I thought if you check the literature, if you check the report from the global leading organization, the OCSE, if you check UNEP, no? In 2011, there was the first report about decoupling, saying this was the second decoupling. You know? The first one was when we decoupled from nature, and in order to recover it, only in 2011, UNEP called for please decouple our GDP, our growth, from the resource extraction. And of course, it's 10 years now that everybody's working on circular economy, on trying to push apart our GDP, our economic capacities, from the resources extraction, no? And try to realign. Because up to now, always our consumption of resources was strictly linked with the economic growth. So it's already 15 years now, luckily, no, that this framework of decoupling, try to decouple economic growth and resources extraction is in place. Everybody talk about that. The economy should try to embrace. Unfortunately, in 2021, a few years ago, during the pandemic, we Europeans, the EEA, the European Environment Agency, published a report saying that look into Europe, how we're managing sustainability, how we are managing the building, the infrastructure, how we manage our territory. There's no way look into the data, again, no perception, data, that decoupling is work for us. It's not going to work and keep us lower than the 3 degrees. And I'm not entering into that, but I guess we all agree, we know, no, but we need to aim to not push farther than 1.5 degree in terms of carbon emission. We all know we will go beyond, right? We're already looking to two and something realistic approach. And so decoupling is not going to work because it's taking too long, it's too slow. And so while we try to push on urban sustainability, on the resource efficiency, on the decoupling, on the try to recycle, try to push for circular economy, still look into the data and how we're doing in 2021, notwithstanding the pandemic, it's not going to work as a strategy, publication. So not my work again, not just to discuss with you. So based on these decoupling crisis, right, and because you're architects, right, and again, I don't know anything about you and about architecture, so I'm here just to bridging what you know, your work, your profession, your future, guys, no, and other disciplines and data, and not sharing my perception. So I found this paper, which was quite interesting. It's a very recent publication, which is Building with It Planetary Boundaries. It's written from an architect, Alto School, and is proposing through data analysis on the building sector, if we look to the planetary boundaries, how architects and the building sector, probably more than architects, should move to be consistent within the planetary boundaries. So the limits we have, the real limits, science-proved limits. And so some number here that justify a bit of analysis that we bring in the papers with some references if you're curious to read. And then as you see the trends in the last years in Europe, okay, so shrinking population, growing built area, et cetera, et cetera. So based on all this data that I'm not going to, if you're interested, the publication is really easy to read. As you can see, the analysis, the quantitative analysis that he's doing in Europe is to consider the embedded carbon, right, of the materials. So when you build something, you already produce a lot of carbon emissions that will last for decades into the atmosphere. So even if you build and then the building is green, of course, like this crazy NEOM line or huge, sustainable, carbon neutral, carbon positive cities, if you look to the embedded carbon, they're ecological disaster, right? So considering the embedded carbon in the building sector and comparing the embedded carbon of building without intervention, refurbishment, new wooden building, new concrete building, and how much upfront emission and operational emission comparison, as you can see, what he, okay, this is just to let you know that we are a bit below, of course, Sweden and the Netherlands, but he's proposing something that, well, it helped me to be provocative today, because he said, well, we should, and there is a sentence, it's a pity I didn't quote exactly, but basically he said, we should be just stop a building, stop now, stop, no more licenses, stop. Quantitatively look into the emissions and the state of the planet, you have to stop now, no more licenses. And then extend old building, renovate extending, utilize what you have. And here he has a process about what things should look like. I know that's crazy, and that's not going to work, that's not going to happen, right? But that was my provocation asking you, right? Do we agree on ecological processes? How to understand ecological processes, understand regulating services, understand all the ecosystem services that we're surrounded. So when you look to a building, a neighborhood, a city, metabolism, which climatic, which regulatory, which other ecosystem services are we interfering with? Which ecosystem services are we using? Which ecosystem services are our building creating, supporting? Is there a way that the city can be regenerative? And so when I build something, I'm not low in emission, but I carbon, and not just carbon positive in terms of materials, but I'm actually working with ecosystem services so I can increase some ecosystem services. So through building, I can not just decouple my economic growth from the resources used, but I produce resources by building. That's something new that colleagues of mine from Europe in UK, they're developing this concept of leaving behind decoupling and circular economy and try to push And this is really innovation because we don't have still fully developed technology to do that. It's still on the shaping, but how our cities, our streets, our building can be regenerative. Which materials should we use? Which processes we should understand, and how to embed those processes in our design at urban scale, at building scales. So that's to me a real challenge. I have no answer at all, but there's just one thing that I'm sure. Within all my inconsistency, guys, so I'm provoking, but I'm the worst person ever because I just flew here today. I took a plane and I was in Oslo for a couple of days ago. And I was a very high-level panel of scientists, some guys working on that and some geographers and some social scientists. And it was this 20-person maximum high-level meeting on the science between climate change adaptation in cities. And just to cite some brilliant women, since we're all white alpha men here, she's Marta Olazabal, and I want to share her point of view here with you. So just to bring more diversity to the speakers. She was organizing this wonderful workshop, bringing the best practices of adaptation and questioning, discussing together how and which kind of adaptation in cities, in the built environment should happen, so to realign with natural processes in cities. And I'm just here, just landed of 2 days of brainstorming, and it's been really difficult for us from different disciplines to understand how to do that. And I could start sharing with you, if you wish, some idea, which comes more from resources management in city, urban metabolism, use of water, the stupid way we're using water, for example, in cities, and claiming that there is climate change affecting us, and so that there are floodings and drought, and so while we're filling our swimming pool with drinkable water, we claim that there is not enough water, or things like that, no? Or in the meanwhile, there's not enough water, we ask money from Europe to build underground huge structure to capture rainwater to avoid flooding when there is a big rain event, big floods. On one side, when it's too much water, we just store it and wash it away into the sea, and using energy actually to do that. From the other side, we say we have no water, and in the meantime, we're filling the swimming pool with potable water. So, I mean, there are a lot of examples about how to rethink our urban governance, urban planning, urban design, realigning with nature. That's what I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we have some time to discuss, to talk, and to open discussion also to the to the auditory. First of all, I would like to say that it's, as we all already thought, it's very interesting always to have something looking from the outside and telling us that there are things that are going right, things that are not so right. And what I at least I can say, taking the words of Mr. Kengo Kuma, no, that form, he said about, no, form and shape is the result, is not the beginning. No? And in this sense, maybe we are comfort when we finally discover that our building has a shape that is close to nature. Because maybe this is the most evident or the first way to contrast with our ideas that we want to be somewhere. But of course, shape, it's a result, but a very poor result. Maybe if we do not, we must go deeper on that and to understand that in nature, forms is the result of an ecosystem. It's a result of a way of living. So you talk about it. You told us we are not doing things so well. So let's continue.
There is one thing that I would like to add, because I'm provoking, I'm paid to provoke. I'm not paid, but I'm here to provoke. So give it, I'm not against or telling that you're doing things badly. No, I'm doing things not the best way, and we're all some kind trying to, and we have our perception. There is one thing actually that I wish to share, not to provoke, but actually to fully align respect to the form. While trying to provoke, I loved the way Kengo, the office, is interpreting, bringing the natural element, because there is one thing which value is huge, which we didn't mention, but is education and people awareness. And I think you're right when you describe form, this ability to make people feel, not just understand, but feel, you know, natural shape, natural processes, or the ability of giving people the chance of experimenting that. It's a connection with nature. That's something that even in many papers about urban ecosystem services is being highly highlighted. There is one main evidence, which at the beginning was really discouraging and then has been revalued. In the literature, for example, of urban ecosystem services, when you look to the assessment, everybody was so enthusiastic at the beginning, saying, hey, we have tools to understand and quantify the urban ecosystem services in city. How much noise pollution, carbon storage, carbon removal, PM, temp, a long list of ecosystem services you can quantify, you can embed in the project. There was this enthusiastic approach to it. And there was a moment where the results came, and these results were not that good. So we also do that with our students. Now we work local workshop in Barcelona, abroad, and we can quantify the ecosystem services, and they're not doing really a lot. Just to let you know, in Barcelona, all the trees, etc., are removing just less than 5% of the pollution. So trees are not going to help, quantitatively speaking. No, won't fix the problem. There is, however, one very key insights from all this literature is that awareness building and people health and people perception of nature. And if you scroll the literature, it's amazing how nowadays everybody's celebrating financing, and Europe is financing hugely nature-based solution, not more because they are driver for sustainability, etc. But indeed, the value for people and the educational, the awareness building, the feeling of relaxation, the mental health, and many papers about health demonstrating the direct effects between health and exposure to nature. This is definitely now the mantra. And I guess this is directly linked to the projects of the studio and all this relevance of form that should inspire, and that's what was amazing in the keynote. So, indeed.
I don't know if there's any question for the audience. Okay, let's go.
Hello, does it work? Okay. I wanted to ask Lorenzo, actually. I know you're not like an architect or anything, as you said, but I still want your personal opinion. Like your personal point of view, to what extent do you believe in the philosophy of Kengo Kuma's architecture, with its emphasis on natural materials and contextual integration, challenge conventional notions of monumentality and permanence while creating, as you say, contemporary spaces that seamlessly blend with their surroundings?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really think that it would be offensive to give my point of view on an architect, I don't know the work. What I can give to you, and this is the contrary of provoking, is my feedback on these elements. So the understanding the context, the relying on how to, through the understanding the concept, represent the limits, understanding nature, how nature can enter. These elements guiding the design are priceless in the sense that, especially nowadays, after the COVID, there is a big literature, of course, of people leaving cities and conquering, the hinterland, the region. So there is this movement from the city to the region. This movement from these that always happened, like there's romanticized vision of nature. People getting tired of the big cities. Now with the COVID, was taken seriously, of course. And there is one more thing that I think contributes to the success of this trend, which is the technology. It's the first time we have the technology, the blockchain technology, right? Allowing us to share energy, to manage energy, to produce our super cheap solar energy. And there is a lot of devices now with AI. You can just community-led, self-manage, and you don't need all the certain socio-economic structure to run your community. That's super empowering. I think that's really relevant in Kengo. I wouldn't say architecture, because I just know what I'm seeing. It's incredible. But these elements are elements that I see everywhere and are really inspiring, because now or never we have all the tools and knowledge to do that. The knowledge is there. You open the internet and all the knowledge there. So do it yourself, and the technology and this trend. I think that this is the link that I see from outside. That's super powerful. Thanks.
I think that we think about, I think was very interesting, Lorenzo's call on this kind of catastrophic, apocalyptic future. Yeah. I think I am quitting my profession, actually, after this conference. But no, to be honest, we share this concern. And I think the question is about, I think we overuse the word nature, right? Because what's nature? And we always have a very idealistic way, about seeing nature. But if we take the example of Japan, like it's a country that I think surface in the planet, it's around 0.25%, I think, geographical surface, and it's hosting I think, a huge percentage of, for example, earthquakes, floodings that result about it, So it's a country that has always dealing with this notion of a nature that is at the same time something that they admire and that they want to connect to. It's a kind of sacred thing for them, but at the same time they have a fear, right, about earthquakes, and I think that something to me, just to push the discussion a bit forwards, it's Kuma-san sometimes talks about his visit to the disaster of 2011 after the tsunami, so this major earthquake that Japan received, and nothing was left, and then even the biggest buildings in concrete were totally destroyed. So I think that there is something about the scale. So actually, since since modernization, we have been always having a positive approach towards the problem of nature. Like we always think that technology will solve this, and in a certain way, modernism with this very positive approach has been always building bigger and bigger and bigger, thinking that human power will at the same time be able to finally control the nature and its parameters. Amazing amount of data, are a lot of teams calculating these things always with the hope that humankind at a certain point will manage to control nature. But the lesson is always the same. At the very end, nature will always win. And then I think that what we are trying to say, like it's maybe we went too big, and actually the strategy that we are trying somehow to implement why an office like ours is trying to work in such a small scale, doing small pavilions. We were thinking this water branch that Kuma explained with the plastic plots and the water inside. Because at the very end of our thoughts, we think that part of the solution is the smallness, and I think that computers, for example, they already did the move on the 70s. They passed from centralization to decentralization. Now everyone has its laptop, his computer, but architecture, we are not there. We are still thinking too big, and then we believe in a way that by going small, certain aspects of the buildings can become a bit more self-sufficient, and the dream of being self-sufficient, it has been done in architecture since like a lot of time. For example, when we thinking about architecture as a living being, not about shape, about flow, we had the metabolists in Japan were already doing a lot of projects thinking on this evolutive architecture, but the problem was that it was simply too big, that at a certain point to replace a capsule was too expensive to be done. But when we come to a smaller scale, we feel that these systems could work, and that even the biggest buildings, when they are depending on the centrality of a central energy power, and they are suddenly cut off by an earthquake, they can make nothing, right? So there is something about the lesson of Japan somehow is that they have always built pretty small since modernism was absorbed, and this smallness had a power of a restorative power, it was much more easy to rebuild again when things were smaller. And I think that this is something that we should maybe think about as architects about which kind of buildings we want to produce. The problem here is that which power we have actually, for this, because actually, 80%, 85% of the architectural work is done by developers, which their objectives and ambitions are totally different than ours. So our strength is very tiny. So what we are actually doing is an architecture of resistance, somehow trying to show other ways that could be implemented, hopefully, by much more other people, much more other architects, but of course, it doesn't depend on us.
Maybe there's some other questions. Yes.
My question is to Mr. Chelleri. So in your presentation, you were very careful to make sure that we all knew that what you were saying was not your interpretation of what was going on, but it was facts. I was wondering, what do you think the problem and the gap between practitioners actually understanding these facts? And do you think it's that people just don't care? Is it the corruption, or what is it? Because you were very clear that this is undisputable evidence of what is going on, and it's horrible. So,
that's a really good question that everybody is always asking. Every COP, conference of the party, every IPCC report, that's why we're all so frustrated. You come here to see us academics and we're frustrated. You at least can change the world. You can build building, or you can decide not to build that and do something else. There is a huge frustration from the science world. Huge. Especially when you see that we need Greta, we need kids to awake a bit the people perception, because it's all about believing it or not. There is already, I mean, there's no need to discussing the data. The problems stay in the too big to fail approach.
Because at the end, people do set the rules that later architects have to follow. We have to submit a project, follow it. Do you think there's a big space for interpretation of that rules that later go in the wrong direction?
There is huge work that you could do, young generation. You see, I'm already saying it, I'm not. You do the work. No, I'm kidding. I'm working a lot, actually, and I hope you could work a lot. When you see that maybe somebody is preparing a bid for a museum or whatever, we all, not just architects, we're all pushing and doing lobby in Brussels, through the network, through city networks, to C40, to Whiteley, there are countless networks of people trying to push for changing regulation, change of licenses. Because of course, when the architect look for money and look for winning some proposal, I mean, the problem is not the architect or who builds, the problem is who writes, no? The conditions and the money and blah, blah, blah. So that's the work to be done. And of course, it's not the architect the responsible, right? I would just share that, yeah. It's difficult to change, but there is never one answer. Like there is no one trend. You point to Germany, you point to big city, you point to little city. I mean, there are a network of thousands of little towns which clustered together already 20 years ago with Transition Network. There is the Ecolis, there are many networks of small towns which do things differently, architects do things differently. It's just countless, the examples of. Then depends which scale you look into the problem and how many trends you see and which scale you want to address. The problem here is that looking to the planetary scale, we have a huge problem. And there is no, just one last word. There are just few papers actually and some big calls at the COP from what's called the planetary stewardship, so a planetary governance. Now that you have the global measurements, once you have indicators, you can work and you can measure the performances and you can see and point your finger to who's doing what, how, from India, and there is a world debate on planetary boundaries. There is this amazing professor from Cambridge, Kate Raffle, which wrote Donuts Economic. I don't know whether you heard about it. Donuts Economic, this new framework of development, where she said there was a huge debate when planetary boundary was presented, because what if I, white male from science, from the global north, tell you globally that you cannot develop anymore because we did it wrong, you know? So there was a huge debate on the political ecology of development, and there was this, again, provocative counter-response from science to social scientists, bringing the attention of development, justice. There's huge literature on justice and just transition, saying that there should be a minimum consumption, which, of course, should be allowed, and underdeveloped countries should be prioritized in allowing them to develop, why the effort should be made by the most developed country. Therefore, you enter in all these debates about, do we need a global governance where everybody is measuring how much you could, how much you cannot, how much, so this is about the rights and the just transition. It's a really interesting topic, it's super complex.
I would like to go on back to your work, Kengo Kuma, because we talk about that we can understand that building can be done in another way, no? In a regenerative way. And there are examples in the past, no? Where there are places, mountains, pieces of nature that has been preserved just because have been built somehow. And in the presentation of Kengo Kuma at your office, you talk about this. For example, in the museum close to the mountain, the Kengo Kuma was saying that it was a disaster that to push towns just to the slope of the mountain, and because of building a museum in a certain way and in a certain position, the wonder was to reconnect the urban and the people to the mountain once again. So I think the problem, and I read in your work that the real problem is a lack of imagination. It's not technical, it's a lack of imagination to be able to think that architecture can be something else, and construction can be done with another basis. So, and I feel a lot of things of that in the work, at least as a wonder. Of course, reality, it's always imperfect, but the wonder to do something different, something else, to reconnect once again. For example, in the park you were talking about, no? There's something about it.
We think that you know, for example, for Hiroshige Museum, what I think that Kuma-san tried to explain was that actually the relation between the village and the forest is symbiotic. You know, when you, I mean, using wood is sustainable, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That depends on how you use it, right? If the wood comes from the other part of the planet, transported by boat, you pay, you know, the carbon footprint might be huge, and even finally it's worse than using concrete casted on site. I don't know, you know. So I think that what Kuma-san was saying is like the fact of trying to use local resources was key because, you know, actually forests, they need also to be felt, to be clean in order to avoid floodings, in order to avoid, so there is also a maintenance of the forest to be done. And when the architecture that you are designing by using these materials that are local also enhance the economy of, you know, forest preservation of the territory you are living in, then you are getting a positive cycle, right? And if we move forward, like I think that a lot of the projects that were shown are actually provocations because, for example, when I was, when Kuma-san explained the meme house, the translucent house, you know, this translucent house done with plastic material, which might seem, you know, he's using plastic, right? Petrol-based material, right? But think about it. Actually, the project is richer beyond the materiality because and in this case, yes, we are using plastic, but at the same time, he's proposing another system of cooling the house, pioneer, and at the same time, he's even inviting the people inhabiting this house to follow the cycle of the day because the house is translucent. So people, these clients, were crazy enough to accept that they would leave every time they want to this house according to the light that's outside. So it's, those houses are provocations, and you have to imagine that for us being architects to have the opportunity or to fight for showing other ways of living is not easy, and it's not about only the globalization of Saskasias and global cities, but for example, even the notion of comfort, you know, like I think that now we are all applying the same values for comfort everywhere in the planet, whereas the tradition or the notion of comfort was very different from some countries to the other. Like let's say that, for example, Asian countries, they would never heat the whole house. It was never in their mind. You know, they were heating the specific places where they were living in contrast to what maybe we would have in other traditional spaces in other parts of the world. So there's, to us, what is also bothering is that some of this kind of regulation and standardization of the comfort parameters that actually are we have to fight and deal with for regulations are also killing some of the very basic notions of comfort that would be much more adapted to specific conditions in each part of the world.
I guess, I don't know if there's more questions. Yes.
Hello. Thank you again, Jordi and Lorenzo, for your presentations. This is a question. In regarding of urban resilience, how do you navigate the tension between short-term economic interest and long-term sustainability goals in urban planning, particularly in rapidly growing cities with vastly different economic dispositions?
How I navigate?
Yeah.
No, that's a very good question. Because indeed, there are two things that come up to my mind, very different. And one is the economic and one is political. And the economic one is different from the political in the sense that the economy is embedded in the way we think, in the way we behave, in the way we fight each other, in the way we want our comfort as a top priority. So even at individual scale, right, as individual, you as an architect designing, I don't know, a house in Calonge where we've been working with the other master, and I'm the individual, and you tell me that notwithstanding the drought, there is enough rain into the municipality to live and to do your stuff. And so this is about architecture reconnecting with nature, so understanding the natural process and try to use it. How much rain I can capture, how I keep the soil and moisture not dry and blah, 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 and feed ecosystem service and biodiversity, blah, blah, blah. But there is a cost. And of course, it's crazy expensive with respect to the tap water, which is drinkable, and it's crazy, right? But you will go for that. So when you mention urban resilience, right? Urban is a super complex, adaptive, unfinished system, to recall again Saskia, in the sense that urban is what? Dozens of different groups of priorities, behaves, right? So urban resilience is the sum of all these very different, somehow conflicting also, capacities and willingness to do things in different ways. So there is a key play here of the individual, of the behaves, of the education, of the sensibility of nature, about how much then as an individual, as a group, as a family, as a network of people, we want really to reconcile with the nature, right? And these will lead us toward long-term, right? And not short-term benefits, right? And short-term, not just economic benefit, but also short-term comfort in terms of benefit. So just filling my swimming pool, get rid of the water quickly when it's raining too much, not have to manage my water, my electricity, right? So this is one, let's say, tension when you talk about short-term, long-term, and resilience, where it stands, There is this tension. And the second is political, and I don't need to give you the answer, So there is a ton of literature exploring all the climate adaptation measures, and most of all the funding is going through protective measure, meaning that the policy always will prioritize something that is not invisible, meaning something that they can show the benefit, the results of this adaptation in the short term. So you need some emergency, drought or flooding, something, heat wave, you need a problem, and I give you the solution within my mandate, right? And so it becomes a political problem when, for example, in Barcelona, you ask money for a new desalination water plant, right? Because there is a drought. Instead of thinking, let's work on the flooding, recapture the water, reuse that water, rather than produce new water through energy, But this is long-term, is super complex, and so the complexity in the long-term and the politics, of course, it's really challenges. But again, there is a link with education and people awareness. So there is a certain profile of cultural background of people which will vote for the results now without taking care. And there is certain behavioral and cultural, say background, which will just fight for what they really believe. And that's where I think the architecture but not just architecture, I mean, the value of having natural experiences help. You will value more this long term. Yeah. Sorry for the long answer. Late.
If not, I have something, Jordi, for you, that I think that it's also interesting for students in general. We always think, but there's the myth, that architecture is produced in the head of someone inspired that gives some drawings. We saw some sketches about it here. And then throw it out through a team of experts that develop this idea. But we know, and the signification today is things doesn't happen like this.
No.
No. You are part of the team, you are part of the, you are author also with Kengo Kuma of the projects you are dealing with. And it will be interesting for us to know, for all of us to know, how this match in between ideas and development occur in an agency and in office, big office, global office like you, that end up in a very interesting, local, specific result.
Well, I think each office has its way of doing, right? And we are we enhance a lot, particularly the collaborative work. We don't believe that the things are so hierarchical. Like, first of all, I think inspiration is not something that comes; it's something that you look for, and then you need to do a huge effort of research to get this moment of inspiration that suddenly comes to something that makes sense. So a great deal of our efforts at the very beginning of the creative process is about exploring, understanding the context, really seeing what are the local resources nearby, cultural heritage, everything, all the parameters that we find that can somehow give a solid base for our proposals. This is something that if one person should do this, it would be impossible, right? And if we consider the time frame that is given to us for designing a competition, you know, it's impossible to absorb. So, of course, that's why we work always in teams, and every single member of the team has a key function for developing the concept. You know, it's not people applying an idea that comes from above. It's something that comes out through discussion in between all the members of the team, and each one of us putting, you know, a small stone that kind of creates this very solid base where we build our proposal on. So we have always thought that architecture is a collaborative work, and of course the role of Kuma-san is key in the making decision process. But this is mostly a discussion in between all the members of the office. That with the transversal discussion, we come out with the ideas that later become the project that you're saying.
May I add? That's always also for you guys. I guess that this school is investing a lot through the TFG, through the workshops, into the team building. Team building is no more just a couple of architects. There's more this way of understanding the process and how to integrate different knowledges. That's really the new, I guess, state of the art, even to me. That when I look to urban resilience, when I look to urban sustainability, there is no longer the chief planner, you know, like the chief architect or the chief. There's always a team, multidisciplinary, that need to bridge knowledges, understand urban ecosystem services, pros, cons, with the engineer, and this is what I guess enriches a lot. And I think that these events also help to have this diverse understanding of the same aspect or the same problem.
And architects, we don't work alone. Like we also have, it's very important to select the collaborators you are working with, engineers, landscape designers, all the specialists that surround us, you know, they are key at the end to make this happen in a positive way, because actually buildings are complex. And then, you know, the profession has become so specifically regulated, and that it's impossible that we centralize all these specialities in one single discipline. So actually the profession is becoming more and more a collaborative work, and I think that this is totally for the best, you know, because sometimes ideas come also from people that are out of our discipline, you know, that can bring something that by you know, when people look at things from as an outsider, you know, like sometimes they come with even better and fresher ideas than people that are inside the discipline. So this is always very enriching.
Okay, I think we are arriving until the end. It's late. So let me stop here. Maybe we can continue talking somewhere else. I would like to thank to our patrocinadores, sponsors that help us to make it possible. No? Cementos Molins, Propamsa, Neocerámica, Simón, and also this is included in Semana de la Arquitectura Barcelona. Would like to thank also the university and the Junta de Escuela of the School of Architecture that lead us also the freedom and the ambition to man these photos. Thank you to you, of course, to be here tonight and to have, because it's not comfort, to all the students and to the team that made it possible, Juan, Jaime, Marta. So thank you, all of you. And each one of us, we bring and continue thinking what we have listened. So thank you very much. And maybe